Okay, so let's just
Okay.
we'll revisit this question of you feel like you're somewhat born 100 years too late, and how's that working with your artwork?
Well, I spent most of my life with horses. Not so much since retiring because it was, horses cost a lot. But so, seeing the land all over the province, actually all over the country, uh, on horseback, it was, you know, quite inspiring for art.
Yeah. So you're running around with a sketchbook all the time on the earth, or is it more of a memory thing? Like you just sort of seeing things and then you go back and you build it and
Well,
create.
the sketchbook is kind of turned into now, as with everybody, we carry a cell phone with you with a really good camera on it, and you can get ideas that way. But
Yeah.
most of it comes back from memory, and sometimes I'll sketch things, but most times I'll just see something that I would like to incorporate into a painting, and I'll just take a quick snapshot of it and kind of work from that. And a lot of times it's multiple photos that I use in order to make what I want to express. So it's
Well,
but
what kind of
definitely,
imagery?
yep, born 100 years too late.
So it's the type of imagery that you love. That's what it's about. The 100 years thing. So the horses and the rural
It
life and
is.
yeah,
And well, even when I was a kid, that was pretty much the most common thing that I would be drawing and painting would be horses, or some of my uh, heroes of the Canadian West. People like Gabriel Dumont and Louis Riel. I painted those when I was a very young man, or kid actually. And I mean, we live in a very history-rich area going back thousands of years. People don't seem to realize that it's not just since European settlement. It's this country was populated by many different nations for you know indigenous nations for a long time. So this ground has been occupied for tens of thousands of years,
it has,
and
yes.
so a lot of times I'll look at a pasturage area, and it's always full of cattle, which I used to raise, and I often wonder what would that look like 150 years ago with this being bison covering
Yeah. So have you found
basically
any
from
artifacts?
as
Have you
far as.
found artifacts on your land? Have you
Oh
found any?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, quite a few,
So is that
over the years.
like buffalo skulls, and what kinds of
We had
pottery?
a bunch of old, very ancient buffalo skulls, and somebody walked away with them.
Oh, smokes. Yeah. Yeah.
They So we had lots of things like that. Actually, I have a friend who had found uh, a hide scraper made out of buffalo bone that he had another friend carbon date going, and it goes back 6,000 years ago. So it's very rich in history in this area,
Yeah, it is in the
which
Prince
was
Albert area.
was
There's
quite astonishing when I heard about that.
yeah, that's, I think it's
So
yeah,
the meetings of the rivers and the northern boreal forest and the prairie. It adds an awful lot to it.
it's a rich
So
land space up in PA area. Yeah, beautiful country. We got smoke in there in the last couple of days, so we're getting some fires again. Dry summer.
we did today. Today's not as bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So this thing, I guess I sort of look. No, we got a bad link again. We'll just wait a little second here. There we go. You're back. Yeah, you clicked off for a second there.
Okay.
It sort of reminds me a little bit like Charlie
Yes.
Russell. Charlie Russell. Now, Charlie Russell was an amazing American painter, and he could just envision horses coming across at you across the plain, and he would just go back and he would paint them. Like, he just had this amazing ability to see action based imagery. I mean, I don't think his painting was accurate as far as decoration and and the things that they did with garmentry and stuff. But as far as horse skills, he had an amazing ability to paint a horse, I guess. And I sort of love what you do with them as well. So.
Well, the thing that I always admired about Charlie Russell was the fact that he was a working cowboy. That was his line of work, and as long as I can remember, I always would look at his pictures, his paintings, and think, man, I'd sure like to be able to paint like that. And just the fact that what brings his to life is the fact that he lived that lifestyle for a long time and continued to right up until his death, basically. Not so much in the later years. He was pretty much full-time artist, but he still held his ties to that lifestyle.
I'm gonna probably have to get Stephen to help me. I got a slide here. I got to get up, and it won't come up live. There we go.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah. So I threw your little shack in there. I just thought I'd give that little.
Oh, good.
Your studio.
Yes.
And I think I remember watching you. You were building this thing a couple years ago.
Oh goodness, we built that. Oh, it's going back well over 30 years.
Yeah, I think you were doing some adjusting to it. I think that's what you were doing.
Yes, quite likely.
Yeah.
The studio itself was originally, it was half of it. The one half was our tack room where we kept all our saddles and all our riding equipment. And the other side was basically our feed room. That's where I work. That's where my area, and the other side is my wife's. But it had a granary built inside of it, and we used to mix up our feed for our special mixes for our endurance horses that we used to race. And when we got out of that lifestyle, well, the building was just sitting there for a year, just as storage. And I really want to have my own place to be able to paint. And so we converted it, the one side, into my studio, and my wife is also an artist, and we converted the other side, insulated it, and we have it heated, and it's quite cozy.
Yeah. Is that all wood heat, or?
No, we heat our house with wood, but down there it's just electric because it's just easier to control.
Yeah.
It's you know what it's like with any art material. You got to keep a fairly constant temperature. So we've been basically using just the electric heat down there.
Yeah. Well, that's a way to manage that.
Yeah.
So we got this imagery here, the custom. I like this. It kind of reminds me that we have an Indigenous artist who's now passed away, but Alan Sapp, and he had painted similar types of imagery. I mean, minimalist backgrounds. I think even in his, he had a bit of the caboose showing that it was pulling in the wintertime, the sleigh. But this is. Can you tell us a little bit about this shot?
Well, you mentioned Alan Sapp, and he was definitely an influence on my art. I always admired his work, and the fact that it speaks to many people, not just the Indigenous community. It's people that have had a rural background. What drew me to painting this was all my life hearing stories from my grandparents and my parents of being lost in blizzards with a team of horses or on horseback, and there's just no way of knowing exactly where you are, but you just have to trust your horses and they will take you home.
Yeah.
90% of horses have that homing instinct. I'm just taking a guess at 90% because I haven't found one yet.
no survey, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I'd say by far the majority are definitely have a homing instinct. Um, I haven't been lost in blizzards myself on with horses, but I definitely have been in places, strange places in the pitch black. And okay, I
Yeah.
guess
Well, I remember
you're on.
yeah, I
Give them a
remember
little scream.
my uncles talking about this as well. They were out on the ice, cutting ice on the lake, and they get all blown in and getting dark. And they said the horses took them home because they didn't know what end was up. They were horses knew it,
It's
but they had a big sleigh of ice. So that was one of the major chores that they had to do. But he did say they had a homing sense in them that they could do that. Yeah.
that's what inspired that one.
Yeah. This is a lovely. This is a calming shot. I mean, this is really humanity with the horse. Like I felt this one is a like it's not only the white space in the painting, but there's a a horse having a drink of cool water. Is kind of
Oh,
it's a very fitting piece.
well, cool water is, well, that's definitely the name of it.
Yeah,
It's so important in the horse's health. Um, After many years of long distance competitive long distance riding, water was the key to everything. Hydration, and so I wanted to kind of pay homage to that. And the the actual I used a photo to work with this one, although I've experienced it many times with many horses. A friend of mine had her sister-in-law was a photographer and a horsewoman down in California, and she had this beautiful photo. And she said, "What do you think of this one?" I said, "I'd love to paint it." So I contacted the photographer, and I said, "Do you mind if I paint it with a Saskatchewan slant to it?" And she was just thrilled that I was going to do that. And I actually provided her with a print with it afterwards, a framed print, and she was thrilled. But it was a California horse in a California puddle, but I put it in Saskatchewan. And the irony of it all was that a lady bought it, the original, who was originally from California. She didn't know any history of the painting at all. And she said, "That looks a lot like a horse I used to own, many years ago." So it was kind of a thrill. But that was I had made that into a print, and my wife Heather said, "That one's not up for sale." She says, "I never had a chance to enjoy that painting, so we have it in the house too." So it's really cool.
yeah. So do you make a number of your paintings into prints as well? Or?
Well, actually, the majority of the paintings that I do, I have digitally scanned by a professional, so I have a high resolution copy, and of course retain the copyright. And um, I do sell a lot of the reproductions,
Okay.
and usually ready to be hung, which has
Right.
been really good. And so that's kind of kept me going as an artist lately. It's because the art sales have been down, for at least for myself, and but I'm selling prints, one or two a month basically.
Well,
So
that's pretty
that's been
good.
kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the design in this one a little bit. It's just kind of that little slice of blue sky. I mean, we always talk about our big blue sky in Saskatchewan,
Hmm.
but I think it's really important sometimes to look down at your shoes once in a while. And this one has that kind of look where you're focusing more on the horse, and there's a simplicity. Yet you've got cattails that are complicated, but they're not right. They're kind of there's detail, but there isn't detail, Pat. So I think it really leads into the horse, and it's a nice composition. It's got a it's not
Thank
in
you.
the horizon line is not just a straight line, so it's got a little waver to it, and
Yeah.
it's
Well, even on our flattest of country around in this province, it's still not completely flat.
no, you're true. That's true. When you're in that country, there's a lot of starting to get into shield country as well, and it gets quite hilly. A lot of people think the Saskatchewan is just completely flat, That's only when you get down in the south area mostly. But no, this is a
Except for
lovely.
the southwest and parts of the southeast are reasonably hilly, especially the southwest and Cypress Hills area. I spent
Yeah.
quite a bit of time in the Cypress Hills area, mostly in the West Block riding, and it's always inspired me too. I always refer to that as God's country, even though I live in it. You know.
This reminds me of an old Clint Eastwood movie. And just when I want a drink of water right now, it's this thing.
Yes. Well, and again, I painted it as a bit of a tribute to endurance riding all those years.
Right?
The water was key. If you saw a place where you could water your horse, you let him drink as long as he could drink, because they're going to be sweating it out. But I don't know if you've noticed in the upper left corner, just at the edge of the hills, there's just some very faint horsemen coming, horse
Oh,
people
okay.
coming.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
And that's why it's called They're Coming. So I put a bit more of a Western slant on it, in the fact that, well, perhaps that's the posse coming for this guy, and even though they're coming, let that horse drink, because otherwise you've got nothing left in the tank, and you're more than likely going to end up hurting your horse.
Yeah.
Probably, in his case, probably getting caught.
Yeah.
But
Well, if he's the outlaw, he'd probably have his horse drink, then he'd empty that tub of water.
as much that would be the smart thing to do for sure.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at this. It has that dirty 30s look about it, with the windmill, and it just has that minimal palette. It's something different than what's the other stuff that is there.
I really enjoy doing the minimal palette and monochromatic type art,
right.
and just throw the odd little flash of color in here and there, just to bring it to life a bit.
You don't need an awful lot. You don't need to bank it up with a whole bunch of rainbow of color. You really don't. I think too many artists do that, rather than choosing their palette before going in and painting something. They just paint from the hip, and if they squirt 7 tubes of paint out, they use all 7 because they don't want to waste it. So rather than saying I'm going to have a analogous palette, I'm going to go from this skin and add that for brightness to white or whatever, and making those decisions before they get into actually producing the piece of work. So most artists have an idea in their mind, I think, of where they want to go with this before they start, hopefully. Maybe not so much in, I would make a generalization on some abstract painters. They kind of shoot from the hip a little bit, and what happens, and they've got a knife, and I can give them the credit for that. They have the ability to do that. But when you're working in somewhat realistically and you've got a scene in your mind, you want to accomplish that in some way that you've got in your mind. I think that's the satisfaction of it, that you
most definitely, and you probably can relate to the fact that what you have in mind in your original plan always morphs into something slightly not quite the same, but the same idea. And that's part of the process that I really enjoy, seeing where it's going to go, and what's going to work as a painting. You can paint every detail you possibly can into a painting, and it doesn't necessarily help it. And
that's very true.
That's something I've learned over the years.
Yeah, learning to take out is probably
that's hard. That's why every now and then I have to just go a little bit freer and do something a little bit more abstract once in a while, and it frees up my own work. I'm not quite so tight after that, and when I start noticing things are getting a little bit tight, well, then that's when I got to do something different for a while. Put that one aside.
Yeah, these ones really conjure up old Western movies that I've seen over the years, and they've mocked up the color palette, whether at nighttime. How do you shoot a film at night?
Oh, exactly.
And the blues come out as a real carrier for that imagery, that instead of black, right? You don't really
exactly. Yeah, even on Blackest of Nights, it's not black, so
That's right.
Uh, there's an awful lot of blues and browns and different colors, but
And this
I
one's
just
really
like,
got a story. There's a real story in this one. You know, you're asking what are they riding from or to? You don't really know, and it's why is it at night, not during the day? There's
and
a
they
lot
could
of
be just riding, as I call it, for the hell of it, but not likely. They're more than likely, they're going somewhere. That's for sure. They're traveling light and going well balanced, as they used to say.
right.
So,
Well, it's kind of I think that's part of the painting is trying to when the viewer sees that they see themselves either on that horse
hmm
or sitting at a window looking at those horses go by the window, even if they're not riding it.
hmm
So they become part of that scene or want to be part of it. So they become your market a little bit because they can relate to what you paint, right? If you're
exactly.
thinking about it that way. I mean, we all have markets, and some people would never buy a horse, but some people would never buy an abstract painting. So you have to understand. Don't try and sell a horse to an abstract person that's looking for an abstract. So that doesn't mean you can't educate them a little bit about it, but that
Exactly.
don't expect the miracle from it. So and I think you'd mentioned before you're really not painting to you guess you're painting for yourself more now
Absolutely.
than doing commissions, and I hear more and more of that with my artist interviews that I've had over the last number of months. More and more of them are painting for themselves. I think COVID probably really set that in for them.
It did. Yes.
Um, and I think understanding they need a satisfaction of painting what they want to paint, not what they have to paint. Um,
Well, that was it actually uh, came more true for me after I retired 11 years ago from correctional service. Uh, I wanted to be able to express what it's like to be a correctional officer. I mean, everything you see on TV is there's very little reality that you ever would be able to conjure up. And I had actually saw a program about inmate art, and which I'd always supported, and actually had a really great rapport with a lot of the guys. Some incredible artists, and but they were trying to portray what life was like inside, which I really admire. So I thought, well, why not tell my side of the story too? And that's how I started working on this body of work. And to my surprise, uh, it actually helped me deal with a lot of issues. You know, after that many years of working in federal penitentiary, there's an awful lot of um, things that build up. The modern term for it now is post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD), and this was just amazing. At first couple of years, I could put out two paintings about that lifestyle. I'd be lucky because it was just like, why do I want to revisit this? I'm trying to leave that behind. And then actually, it was this painting that you've got on the screen right now called Day One. When I did that one, I had so much fun. I could poke fun at it. I could say, I've been to the big scary brick monster. It didn't eat me up totally,
yeah,
but and I survived it, and I have a lot of things to say.
yeah.
And
No, I know most people have no idea of what goes on behind those walls. They hear rumors and assume different things, and all the
there's,
things that go on.
there's,
And
very, there's
yeah,
been very few movies that actually capture what it's like inside. And believe it or not, even though it was set in the 1930s in Deep South on death row, The Green Mile probably was one of the best movies that we'd ever seen as far as depicting that kind of lifestyle. And also another Stephen King movie, the Shawshank Redemption,
yeah,
fantastic movie.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah, Hollywood has created some good ones and a lot of bad ones as
oh,
well
a
as
lot of that.
the fear mongering that goes on as well.
Exactly.
I mean, um, I think we do that to try to make sense of it. I mean, really, nobody really wants to go there, right? They're just trying to stay out of there as well. But I know a couple of people that do work in the facility here in Saskatoon as well, and there's someone retired as well. But it they don't talk about it much. Uh,
No.
it's kept within. Where this book, I guess, was. I'll introduce the book here.
Okay.
You call it behind the razor ribbon, I guess, and
Correct. Yes.
uh, I think it is a kind of a cleansing, I guess, for the artist, but it's also a brave thing to do. You're backing it with your own dollars because it was somewhat self-published, was it not?
Totally self-published.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
so
And
when an artist takes on something that they believe in and they self-publish their own piece, and not just one print. I mean, we're talking book, and they don't just print one book, and you have to put the files together, and you have to do the copy and pay the
there's a
bill
lot.
for the printer and distribution, the marketing, the whole shtick. You get it
There's
all.
there's a lot goes into it.
Yeah, there is lots of work to it, and I know I've got a couple of photographer friends, and they do the same thing. They create books, and you kind of wonder, are books going by the wayside a little bit? You know, there's so much stuff online now, but there's something about when you hold a book and turn the page, and I think it's nice to see an artist actually committed to something like this. But if you wish that other people would back you a little bit, right? It's sort of like
Exactly.
it would have been
Uh,
nice if, say, Federal Pen would have backed a book like this as orientation, as an understanding piece nationally about something, right? So
I,
it's
I've
it,
probably had as much interest in it internationally as I have nationally. Of course, locally, a lot of people know me, and a lot of my colleagues have bought the book, and people that I didn't know before even, and just because they're genuinely interested in the whole
so
concept of it. And
so. What do the inmates think of the book?
actually, to my surprise, I've had several contact me since I had published it. In fact, during my book signing, the gallery that I sell it in was packed for the signing. I was blown away. I just couldn't believe it with hardly any notice. And people were coming in, and I was signing the book, getting lots of hugs from old colleagues and new friends and what have you. And I looked up, and here's this man standing there that I know very well, and he was a lifer, and he's been out for several years. And I said, "Wow, it's good to see you here, but what brings you here?" And he says, "Well," he says, "I bought your book online. I bought the ebook." And he said it meant so much to me that I wanted to come down and get a hard copy and have you sign it and tell you how much I enjoyed it. He said what I enjoyed about it was the fact that I can show my kids now where I've been, what happened to me, and I can also remind myself you do not want to go back into there. And I mean, he was definitely somebody that's pulled his life up, and it's done remarkably well. And so that was a really nice thing. And I've had even former inmates that I never even knew before contact me and say thank you for doing this, and which was never my goal, but I certainly wasn't out to try and belittle them, because anybody can end up in prison. I mean, that's a fact of life, and
Yeah.
uh, so when I painted it, there was never any animosity shown. I mean, it was part of the job, and just
So this shot is kept in black and white. I guess your monitors are they black and white in your?
well, now not anymore. And now, of course, they're all on big screen, all in one screen. But when I was working those posts, it was all tiny monitors, and you've got so many places to cover. It's you almost have to have your head on a swivel, because there's a lot of people depending on you. I mean, in the bottom left corner, you've got the fellow that's in a secure cell, probably on, either he's on a suicide watch or whatever. And we used to get the salute quite often, and understandably. And so I just painted it's nobody in particular, but
Yeah.
it's 100 guys I've seen before. And then above him, of course, there's an inmate cleaning the dining hall after, dinner's been served, and just one of the jobs that they cover. So I got to kind of keep an eye on him a bit. And then you got your recreation area where they're playing pool. There's lots of things happen there. You really have to keep an eye on places like that.
You've given them a stick.
Yeah. Exactly. And
a ball.
Well, they do have a lot of weapons. They're all homemade. I've in my book there's a few of the pieces that bring that to life. In fact, one is an installation piece that I did with. I actually manufactured weapons that I have seen and found, or colleagues have found, and some of them have actually worn them. But I put it on. It was basically like a big mobile, and
Okay.
so that was kind of interesting. But yes, getting back to that, there's always stuff going on,
Yeah.
and
I can't imagine working all day, being that tensed up, looking at everything, right? Being over
exactly.
your shoulder, and you know, you're being befriended by some, but some other are they've got carrying a lot of baggage, and
Hmm.
and hate, and different things, and they're not there because they want to be there.
You have to have eyes in the back of your head, and working in that environment, anybody that has been there for very long, I know all my colleagues that I've talked to about it. You develop a sixth sense, and you have to listen to it because it'll save your life.
So how does this balance now? You go home and you're back on your farm. I guess I see that as a um, kind of a haven where you just can get away from everything. Is
Absolutely.
that how you treated your studio? I guess you didn't do an awful lot of studio life while you were working. Is that correct?
Not until actually towards the end of the career, but my horses and animals were always there. Now, my wife is also a retired correctional officer, and but we always a lot of times we weren't on the same shift. Not always, but a lot of times we weren't. And so the horses and dogs and cats, they heard every story I had. So it was a good way to vent, and as soon as you get driving up the driveway, you can just take a big sigh of relief. I actually did a painting for the book. Uh, it's I don't think I shared that one with you there, but it's with me in my original uniform with two of my horses. One of them was the one that I had started my career with, and the other one was the one that I finished my career with. And there's many years in between, and they never even got to know each other, these two. But I put them in my my painting together, and
You're probably the horse whisperer, I guess, as well. Huh?
I have done that. That's for sure. I have gone down that route. Learned a lot from an awful lot of incredible horse people over my lifetime, just like I have with art. I've learned from an awful lot of incredible artists over the years too.
So how does it?
Um,
So how does this raven in the? Is that a raven in the corner?
that is a raven. They are always around the penitentiary because
Are
there's
they?
always food scraps and what have you, and they will provide comic relief. I remember watching the monitor and seeing these ravens. They see their reflection in the camera. Well, they're looking at it, and you get all these peculiar looks. And I'm a huge raven fan. I actually they're one of my favorite subjects to paint or sculpt. and I had to include a raven.
Yeah, no, I love ravens as well. They're very brilliant. I've got other stories about that, but we can talk about that another
That's
time.
another day, yeah.
Yeah, well, we got stuff going on here because you do other things as well. You do some sculpting as well, and
Yes.
some paper collage and stuff. So here's a really, this one feels very Edward Hopper like, short of people looking out a window or something. So there's a it's not so much sterile, but it is just so cleansed and clean. Like every window is a view out, right? And yet they're in. Uh,
Yes, and so you're getting all the light from the yard of the penitentiary shines
right.
in,
Yeah.
and so it's never completely dark because, but it's almost an eerie light,
So
and
so is that an
and
intent? Okay. Is there a shadow there about halfway down the left side of the wall, and behind that little white arrow, there's a little white.
there's actually it's depicting a correctional officer doing his cell checks and holding a flashlight.
Oh,
Um,
that's with the flashlight. Okay. Yeah, that's
yes, yes. It's more visible on the piece itself.
on the large piece. Yeah. I'm just
Yeah,
looking on the
the
screen. It's not that
painting's
large. Yeah.
reasonably large, 24 by 48, so it shows up a lot more. But
Oh, that would. Yeah.
just about everybody that's worked behind the walls, when they see that one, they say, "Oh my God, I can smell that place." I know exactly what it's like. You hear all the snoring and farting, stuff going on, life behind these bars, and you have to make sure that
Yeah.
the people that you're looking after are alive and well, which is
I think compositionally, though, there's this repetitive diminishing. I don't know if they ever used to have like Star Trek, and they have these in I guess design elements put in place to say space, going into space fast, right? And they have
right. Yes,
boom, boom,
yes,
boom, 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 boom. They're diminishing down, right? They're blowing it,
yes,
and this is going down to the abyss at the very end. You really can't
exactly.
see the end; it's just there somewhere. You're trying to form it with your
29
eye.
cells down, so it's
Yeah,
a lot of cells to cover it down all the way down, and
brilliant.
actually, there the other end would have been there's actually another barrier there going into another unit,
Right.
and
It's got a nice power, but there's a serenity to it. There's a calm yet to it as well, but there's that unknowing feeling.
mhm.
And like I said, that little mystery figure that's on the left side there, I just kind of wow, that's. I didn't really see that in the beginning. It just kind of went into the wall, and then I started looking. At okay, it looks kind of like a shape there.
What? I guess then I accomplished what I was needing to do, because
You did.
we would be as quiet as a ghost going down there as much as possible,
Yeah.
and it just worked out.
Now here's another view, right? This one really is a lifestyle view. Um, Probably more, well, lifestyle of both the inside and outside the bars and the window, right?
Exactly.
Your the guard yourselves, and I guess the ground outside.
And that one's done completely by memory, from what it was like, because of course you're not allowed to take pictures, and when I was still working towers, cameras weren't as compact as they are now. Everybody carries one,
Right.
but it just reminded me, I wanted to portray what it's like to look down and observe all the different groups that are around. The different
I
cliques, and
Yeah.
you've got the two guys down below yelling up, "Hey, key up! I want to go in. I'm cold out here. It's time for me to go in," and that kind of thing. And actually, I'd used one of my uh, favorite coffee mugs that was made by another artist friend. I put that in the tower with me, with the
Yeah.
coffee rings left all over the windowsill, and the binoculars.
Well, I like it though because it really gives you a feeling of indoors and outdoors. Like you've got the warm sill that's there, right?
Exactly.
That warm, that little warm tan kind of color, and also the humanity, the you've got a cup of coffee, and it's yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, and the binoculars, they're there, but you don't really need them because you can see what's going on there, and they're stark, dark images on white outside, and you know it's cold out there. So yeah, you've got a lot going on. It's a nice image, and it tells an awful lot in the story, right? And that's it. Your storytelling.
That,
Uh,
that painting did really well for me. Actually, I thought, should I put it in the Prince Albert Winter Festival or not? And I thought, well, we'll see what happens. And it ended up placing third overall, which was a real thrill for me. And then they, they they bought it for the permanent collection, which was
yeah,
another
you see that.
wonderful thrill. Uh, and
Yeah,
I thought I'd put enough money. I didn't really want to sell it because I wanted to keep the body work together.
yeah,
But if anybody was going to buy it, that was perfect. And so I put a crazy price on it, and holy smokes, I sold it. So,
yeah. It tells
which
you that
was,
crazy's not crazy.
you know, so
Well,
that
a lot of artists
was,
don't understand how much their work is worth, and it's great that the gallery bought in on what you're doing, because not only you are a regional artist there, but you really are depicting what that whole. I mean, the city is based. It's a correctional city,
it is.
and it
There's
influences a lot of the people in the area too, right? They work there. So a lot of people are doing things. So
everybody knows somebody that's worked there, or knows somebody that's been inside. It's everybody knows somebody that's had something to do with it. So this is one of my more recent paintings. I painted it, very loosely. Another one of the ravens I like to do. Um it's I call it the spokesman, and it came together really fast. Most of it I painted with a fairly good size, just a painter's brush. I think it was an inch and a half. I just was doing some experimenting, and it just kind of got more and more, and I was
right,
really happy with the way he turned out. I just love it when ravens get all puffy, and start squawking. They
yeah,
all their
they get their ears out.
feathers, exactly, their feathers get
Yeah, yeah,
flustered out like that, and there's a lot of noise coming out of him. So that's why I named him the spokesman.
yeah.
So,
A lot of people, they think they caw like a crow, but they don't.
no,
They don't
not at
caw at
all.
all. They have more of a sticks hitting together kind of a sound um, when they're
They
talking.
have, I think the last time I researched it out, somebody said that they have at least 60 plus uh, vocabulary of
Yeah,
different
yeah,
words.
they're very brilliant birds. I love this piece because it almost is. I don't want to say it Robert Bateman-y a little bit, because it not. He used to paint some simple backgrounds just for. I mean, he did an osprey one time, and it was very similar, but a little bigger bird than that. Not the full osprey, but he just kept the clean background, because it was all about the bird, right? It was just the bird, the
That's
feathers,
that's
and
why
the
what I
moment.
did with this guy too. I just wanted to feature him, so he could be in the snow. He could be on a
Yeah.
lake somewhere, as far as I know,
So
or even
you've got a show coming up.
I
With,
do
okay.
for
Let's.
the month of June. It'll be at on the Avenue Art Gallery in Prince Albert,
Okay.
1101 Central Avenue. Uh, I'm calling it mixed media introspection through art, because it's a little bit of everything that I've been doing in the 2020s. And actually, this piece will be in it.
Okay.
Uh,
Well,
which will,
you'll send me an email with that link, and
I will for sure.
we'll get that promoted for you a little bit and help you
So I'll
get
be
that
busy
going.
setting that show up later this week, probably on Monday while it's nice and quiet in there on the holiday. My wife and I are going to set up the show.
Well,
It's in
look
what they
forward.
call the mini gallery, which is just a small space that actually has. I have 17 pieces going into it, so I'm quite excited about that.
Okay. Yeah.
Very cool.
It'll be should be a
And,
good show.
and Pat, if I may ask, this is the question I ask every artist, so I'm not picking. And Paul already knows what's going to happen. So what's the range? So if somebody wants to buy some of your work in original, what are we ranging from X to Z?
Well, this piece itself, I'm asking $500 for, which I don't think is unreasonable. There was a time where I was charging more. Back in the early 2000s, it was a lot more profitable then. But people's priorities shift, as money becomes tighter, and so 500 is a decent price for that one, I figure.
That's a very good price for that.
That's a very good price. Your work is beautiful. So not just this one, but like the horse pictures, the prison pictures, if you will, the correctional pictures. So is everything around 500? Is some stuff go from 500 to 5,000?
Oh, no.
Kind of what's the range of your artwork?
The most I've ever sold for was just a tad under $3,000.
Okay. For
one piece. And there's been many that I've sold for $1,000. Because with the book, I'm trying to keep it all together, for hopefully another show somewhere. But I mean, everything's for sale, right? So
that's true. Well, here, my suggestion would be this, and you and Paul can have this dialogue. We should just do a show on the book.
I agree.
So we should just have a 30 to 45-minute show.
We can do that
on the book, and I'll let you and Paul figure out what works, and we will here at Two Old Farts. We'll make sure that it happens and air it. But I think the book will be fascinating, and we're going to put, so the people that are watching and listening, we'll put the link below. So the Amazon link for where you can buy Paul's book will be there, as well as Pat's book, and as well as Pat's website. So all the information to buy his book will be below if you're watching this. And if you can't figure that out, get a hold of us here at TOF, and we'll make sure that you can get a hold of it.
I would love to see this as a national tour through the different penitentiaries across the country. Yep. It would be a great little show to travel, and but somebody's got to organize that. And I think it would be, I guess, not medicinal, but it would also it would help people in seeing mentally, to be able to see some of this kind of work. I think it's valuable, and it's a testament to you, Pat, for being able to do this, because it's you need an inside person to do this. You need somebody who's lived those 27 years to be able to do this. Other artists can come and paint from somebody else's vision, but when you paint from your own vision and your own life experiences there, I think those are valuable to share with other people that are in institutions, or say planning to become a correctional worker, to be understanding like this would be great anywhere across North America, to see some of the stuff that's going on here. Anyway, that's my plug.
Well, we'll have you back, and we can talk more about this and the book and whatnot. So, gentlemen, thank you both for your time. Everybody that's watching, don't forget to subscribe and leave comments below. Pat, stick out with us till we're done with the end credits, because, this is the best part. If David was here, he'd be very proud of this part. So we'll see everybody next Thursday. Cheers.
Thank you.